Welcome to the Post Sports Chat. I'm Drew Rubenstein. I'm with Ed Owens, and Ed, we're a few days removed from WVU's 73-42 loss at Baylor. And until you wrote it, I didn't realize the fact that West Virginia was the only Big 12 team to play 6 games in the opening 6 weeks of the season. How much, if any, did that factor into what happened in Waco, Texas?
Yeah, Dana said it himself. It didn't really factor in that much. Definitely they were tired. They were worn down, I think, physically and mentally. But you and I have talked about it. I think if they had a month to prepare for that game, Baylor still probably would have had the same result. Baylor is an offense like we haven't seen before this season, and I don't think we'll see again this year. Defensively, they were solid, and WVU's quarterback questions, their offensive questions, I don't think could have been answered in a short period of time. So I don't know that that really impacted anything other than how great the disparity was in the game. But I think either way, Baylor takes that one.
Interesting. But West Virginia does have a bye week before coming back to host Texas Tech next week. Dana Holgorsen kind of read a long list of players who are on the injury report right now. Do you think West Virginia needs this week off more physically or mentally wise?
Mental, without a question. I think post-game interviews after Baylor, they were a beatdown team. Every guy that came out, with I think the exception of Darwin Cook, seemed like they could really use this time to get themselves right upstairs. Dana did run down the list of guys who were ailing. Tops on the list were Clint Trickett and Ford Childress at quarterback, Quentin Spain, who suffered a concussion in last week's game. But that doesn't really factor into what had been going on the previous 5 weeks. I don't think it's as much physical as it is mental. I think these guys need to get their heads right and kind of rebound, refocus for Texas Tech coming up.
Injury-wise, you mentioned Clint Trickett, Ford Childress, 2 quarterbacks who are hurt that they're hoping to have back come Texas Tech week. That said, do you get a sense of the direction they would like to go? You would think that they don't want to keep rotating like they did the first 6 weeks of the season, that you would hope, West Virginia would hope that they would have somebody kind of establish themselves for the final 6 games.
They were hoping they'd have somebody establish themselves for the season opener, and that didn't really happen. But yeah, I think they'd love it if somebody would kind of step up and take that job. It's something they've been talking about for the first month and a half. Dana's press conference yesterday, one of the things he said was that it's going to be Clint's job as long as he's healthy and ready to go, unless Ford can really come out and show him something this week. Ford, who's been out with a torn pec since the Maryland game. One name that's left out of that conversation right there is obviously Paul Maillard, who's the only healthy quarterback they have at the moment. So it's a little bit questionable. They're definitely going to give the 2 injured guys a chance, it seems like, before they give Maillard a chance. But I think no matter what they do, the most important thing is that they pick one guy and settle, because it's really hard for them to get any kind of offensive consistency with 3 starting quarterbacks in 6 games.
Is it interesting for you that Paul Maillard is eliminated from the competition? Because when you hear about a quarterback who understands the system, able to check in and out of plays, Paul's the name mentioned, and yet he's the one that seems to be third on the list right now.
Yeah, when Clint had communication issues in the Baylor game, the first one, and I guess process of elimination, Ford wasn't ready to go, but they put Paul in, and he knows the system. He gets it. He gets Dana's signals. He gets the plays communicated quickly. And I am a little surprised by it. Paul had 2 games to prove himself. He did an average job in the opener, and he really struggled in their second game against Oklahoma, and that was enough to take him out of the competition. But every quarterback has struggled. Childress had a really tough game against Maryland, and Trickett, he's only completing about 41% of his passes on the season. So to really eliminate one guy from the competition, I think shows just kind of where their head is at right now.
Interesting. We're 6 games in, so we're at the halfway point. They're 3-3. I don't think many fans and observers would have been surprised to see WVU sitting at 3-3. Maybe not the games they won and lost, but what does West Virginia need to do you think, for this season to be considered a success? They've been to a bowl game every year since 2002. Do they have to get to one? Do they have to even go more than that?
Absolutely. This fan base expects bowl games. It's something for the last decade, they've grown accustomed to, and it seems like every year they've been able to deal with changes and still make a bowl game. I think that's kind of the measuring stick with how you can compare this team to past years. I do think that's important, but especially with the youth and experience on this team, I don't think getting to a bowl game is enough. I think they have to go to a bowl game, and as meaningless as they really are, I think they have to win a bowl game. They have to show that improvement as the season goes on, really finish strong, because the beginning of the year, I think these first 6 games, it's been a wash.
Interesting. Ed, appreciate your time. Please continue to check VDpost.com for the latest on the Mountaineers. Thanks for watching.